everyone, and welcome back to a new video. This one, God, I've been trying to film this for the last week, and everything else in my life has just been getting in the way, but I've finally been making some really good progress with the book that I'm writing. I've been on a journey with that book, which I will tell you about at the end of the video. But for now, let me tell you about what we're going to be talking about today, because this is also a journey, right? It all started with a Reddit post that I saw the other morning, and this post was titled 10 Lessons After Approaching 3,000 Plus Girls. And I had a good laugh at this. I was like, yeah, this is a terrible post with terrible advice, and I can probably make a good little 15-minute video out of this, maybe for my second channel. It'll be a good giggle. And then I dug deeper. Turns out this post was written by someone who's actually a YouTuber called Jay Mistry, who had a couple of pretty successful videos a couple of years back when he reviewed Andrew Tate's Hustlers University. He then tried to sell everyone crypto scams for a while, and now he's rebranded again as a dating and lifestyle coach for men, offering the most terrible advice in thankfully very short videos with generic dull titles that so far not many people are watching, but he's clearly on a bit of a big marketing push. He's also written a book giving people terrible advice, although I haven't been able to get a full copy of the book. I've only read the opening and introduction first, whatever's free on Kindle. Today I'm going to talk about a lot of his content, but I'm also going to be reviewing a book that he recommends quite often, which is by someone you might know, and that is Mark Manson. Yes, that Mark Manson of The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F fame. He wrote, back in, I think it was 2011 off the top of my head, it's in my script later, he wrote one of the most disgusting, misogynistic books I've read since I read and reviewed Roosh V's books. It is awful. I don't think people realise that Mark Manson is quite that bad, but Jay here has opened my eyes to this. So today we're going to be reviewing Jay's content and Mark Manson's book, and covering a few other books and bits of content out there that are aimed at men. Because here's the thing, a lot of this stuff, like the content that people like Jay put out, would be laughable and not really worth a whole video until you see his marketing strategy. He is using Reddit to, one, target rich but lonely guys to try and scam them out of money, and two, target vulnerable teenagers so he can scam them out of money. Just one example is this poor kid who posted in r/advice for teens confessing to feeling suicidal and really needing help. And Jay, being a grown adult, apparently with kids of his own, instead of trying to help this teenager, telling them they shouldn't feel so alone, telling them, you can get help here, here, and here, asking if they have any trusted adults in their life they can talk to. Instead of any of that, he just turned around to this child and said, "Lol, you should watch my videos," and linked him to one of the most harmful videos I've ever seen, which we are going to be reviewing a little bit later. Now, as I said, Jay Mistry himself is not a big channel yet, but the things he says are so harmful, and he's targeting some of the most vulnerable people, that if someone doesn't step in and correct him, then he is going to go on to hurt a lot of people. The harm he does isn't just real. Sorry, Kyra's been really cute and rolling around out on the balcony. Kyra, this is a serious topic. Stop being so cute. Sorry. Critiquing his ideas here has nothing to do with his channel size and everything to do with the misinformation that he is spreading and the harmful advice he is pushing on vulnerable people. I'm very aware that I don't just want to be punching down at smaller channels for the sake of it, but ultimately this is less to do with how many people he has watching him just yet, and the fact that he is doing harm to the people who are watching him, and he is seeking out vulnerable people with the intention to harm them and make money off them, and that's not okay. So we're going to start by taking a look at his Reddit post, which led me down this rabbit hole in the first place, because I think this gives us a hell of a lot of insight into who Jay actually is, how he thinks, and ultimately how little he values women, because we really are nothing to him. Much like Roosh V, and if you haven't seen my videos on him, I'll link them in the video description, Jay likes to play the numbers game, which is basically approach as many women as possible and just hope one of them is vulnerable enough to swallow your crap and fall for it. If she does, take advantage of that. Now, honestly, this post doesn't start off that bad compared to his later stuff. He says things like, "You'll always overthink. Act before thoughts rot your mind," which maybe isn't the best advice, but I kind of get where he's coming from. If you have anxiety, sometimes you want to act quickly before you get too in your head, right? But, as we'll see a little later, Jay doesn't have the best approach to mental health in general, so I take even this bit of advice with a pinch of salt. He goes on to write, "Let her know you exist." Yeah, that's not so bad. You can't meet anyone if you're just keeping to yourself, right? You gotta put yourself out there. Absolutely fair. But skipping forward to number 4, we get eye contact is everything. Smile through your eyes and don't be the first to look away. Now, we'll talk about this in more detail later because, as we'll see in his videos, he kind of uses eye contact as like a weird power play, almost like staring people down. It's kind of creepy. Now, I'm not really a fan of this bit of advice for a couple of reasons. One, I think it can come across as threatening if you're not careful, especially the way Jay does it, which, like I say, is kind of like a power play. This idea that you have to stare them down to show that you're a strong, masculine man. And personally, as an autistic woman who's not really comfortable with eye contact, this would just make me incredibly uncomfortable and I would want to go home and cry. But again, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail later. Point 5 of this post is where things start to get quite rough. He says, "Don't flirt. Most guys try to flirt with a stranger and it's cringe because you give her validation. Just because she's pretty doesn't mean she's girlfriend material. Qualify her and see if she passes the vibe check." And then he calls flirting simping. Now, he had me at first. I was agreeing with him. Don't go up to strangers and try and flirt with them off the bat because that can make them uncomfortable. That can be seen as creepy and intimidating. But this whole creepy, misogynistic power play of don't give her the validation until you've judged her feels a bit weird, right? Like, am I crazy in thinking that flirting isn't about giving a woman validation, but it's more about fostering a spark between two people, saying, "Hey, I'm interested, I'm getting vibes that you're interested, let's vibe it out a bit," yeah? It's about forging a connection, it's about getting to know someone else and signaling that you want to get to know them better and you want to share more about yourself and, you know. But Jay has this weird idea that women are these commodities that he needs to judge and review before he does anything like be nice to them. And even then, for him, flirting isn't about being nice to someone. It's about manipulating them in some way to get sex out of them, right? His reasons for not flirting are not because he might make the other person uncomfortable, but because he doesn't want just any old woman feeling good about herself. And also, he doesn't want to risk embarrassing himself either if she's not interested. It's clearly like an ego thing because he has no self-confidence, does he? No, unlike you. In all his social interactions, the other person, in this case the woman, their comfort and feelings of safety don't come into this at all. They aren't a concern to Jay, and that is concerning. Isn't it, small one? He claims that of women, it's their fairy tale to be approached rather than be matched on a dating app. Yeah, no, I think it's our fairy tale to be able to live safely in peace without being harassed by men like you. You're a bit off there, mate. Do the manly thing and approach. You'll feel like a boss. She'll feel feminine. Chemistry galore. Why does it sound like he's never been around an actual woman in his life? Like, me and my partner had crazy chemistry when we first met, and I was the one who asked him out, So yeah, that one single anecdote puts a spanner in your theory, doesn't it, Jay? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Oh, I don't know, I'm tired. Next up, he tells men that they need to be approaching women at least 3 times a day because that adds up to nearly 1,100 times a year. He says, I know, it's stupid, isn't it? It's stupid, even you know that. He says, literally approach the first 3 girls you see by themselves every day. Just make sure they're isolated first, yeah? It's not creepy at all. Trust me, from someone who's approached anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 girls in my time, this is the best way. No, Jay, you trust me. As a woman who's been approached by strangers in public just because I'm alone, please don't do that. There are so many problems with this just try with as many women as possible and see what sticks approach. On the one hand, it feels like commodifying women. It reduces us down to interchangeable objects because a man like this just clearly wants anyone he can get, not actually someone special. He doesn't actually want you. He just wants someone who'll have him, you know? Which means he's less likely to be loyal in the long term. He's just going to go for the easiest, most vulnerable target. He's not going to actually treat you with any respect. It's dehumanizing. He doesn't care about any of these women as individuals. He just wants to collect as many as possible like trophies. Plus, as a woman, it's quite intimidating to hear because it just feels like none of us are safe. Like, I was writing this video script at my writing group and I was speaking to some of the girls there and I was like, what do you think of this? And like, me, Jess and Chloe were sat around and we were like, yeah, none of us are safe. He could want any of us. Like, if we were sat alone right now, he would be here trying it on with all of us and we were like, ooh, creepy. Not very nice. He's not targeting women with certain characteristics. He's just going for as many as possible as often as he can, and he's telling other men to do that too. Like, he's literally saying, if you see a woman alone, target her. And that is terrifying because what that equates to in the real world is, if you're a woman alone, you're going to be harassed by men. You have no choice. And if he's going out there telling this to all these different men and all these men are doing it, it means that we're not going to be able to go anywhere alone without being approached by God knows how many men and bothered by them. It's not, oh God, it's the worst. Yeah, I was rambling there, but I literally wrote in my script here, if every single man followed this advice, none of us would ever be able to leave the house alone without being bothered, and most of us already can't. And it's not just that they bother us, it's not just that they're talking to us, it's not just that they're hitting on us, it's the fact that we don't know how they'll react when they're rejected. That's the scary thing. I've turned down men from sorry, not interested, I've got a partner, please leave me alone, and had men shout at me, call me names, follow me home, follow me into shops, try and touch me without permission, just because I've not been interested in them, and it's terrifying. When any man approaches you in public and you're alone, you don't know if they're going to be one of the ones who has that reaction, and it is scary. And again, this point here shows that Jay has absolutely no consideration for the other person in this interaction. It's all about what he and other men can get out of this. Literally approach the first 3 girls you see by themselves. Okay, but what about when those girls, I think he means women, don't want to be bothered? They're trying to get somewhere or do something. Why not have consideration for their needs and wants and feelings of safety? And of course, to look at the final point, he says, take massive action now while you're still single so you don't regret it when you're older and married and want to cheat on your wife because you didn't take action when you were single and had the chance. Again, this just shows a lack of respect for women in general, and honestly, a lack of respect for other men, actually. It's like when fundies assume that women need to cover up because men can't control themselves, they just have these urges, and they treat men like these wild animals that we've got to be careful not to tempt. It's disrespectful because not all men are like that, and it's the same here. Not all men are going to cheat unless they've had XYZ amount of women beforehand. That's just not how a lot of men work. It's disrespectful to paint all men with this brush. Not all men are this shallow and lacking loyalty. There are actually good ones out there, you know? Not everyone's like you, Jay. Jay now claims in his videos and content that he now has a wife and a 1-year-old child, and I honestly feel so sorry for his wife. Can you imagine if you're married to this man and you hear him going around saying, I won't cheat because I've already hit on loads of other women, don't worry, rather than, I won't cheat because I love you and I'm committed to you. God, I would be so sad if my partner was talking like this. And that's the end of this Reddit post. So, you see what I mean? I thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was just like, there's some points we can make here. Let's just do a silly second channel video. But then, like I say, I looked at his Reddit profile. I found him targeting teenagers and vulnerable people and trying to scam a bunch of people out of money. And then I found his YouTube channel. So like I say, Jay has a YouTube channel where he makes videos like my honest review of Hustlers University 4.0 from Andrew Tate. Is HU4 legit or a scam? Spoiler, he really likes it. Of course he does. He genuinely thinks it's worth 50 quid a month, and that's a good investment. So that's the kind of man we're dealing with here. I just feel like if you're an Andrew Tate fan, that really says a lot about you, doesn't it? And I immediately don't trust you. But he also has a range of interesting video topics like, I made £39,000 a year driving trucks. Do you want to kill yourself? Watch this first. Become a millionaire with £1 a day. YouTube paid me £817.77 with only 1,478 subscribers. I stopped watching the news and I'm never going to again. Please help. Is she into me? And my personal favourite, 3 things all young men want, with the thumbnail, do these 4 things. His YouTube channel also links to a free men's dating skills quiz, but sadly it's just a draft and I wasn't able to take it and have my dating skills evaluated. Yet. Maybe one day he'll finish it when he's finally learned how to use apostrophes and I can be tested by Jay and we can see how good of a man I really am. Now, I want to have a look at some of his videos, and we're going to be kind of splitting these up into broad topics. We've got his videos on mental health, his pickup advice, and his videos motivating men. Let's take a look at these. We're going to start with mental health. His videos discussing mental health issues are disrespectful and dangerous. One in particular was this one titled Self-Harm, Understanding Why People Do It and How to Stop, where he uses this incredibly triggering image on the thumbnail. I'm going to censor this, but basically it's a person holding their arm out with visible cuts and scars. Not sure how YouTube are still allowing this as a thumbnail, but here we are. If you want to skip this particular topic because it's too difficult for you, I understand that. Absolutely okay. I'll leave a timestamp on screen that you can skip to, or just skip to the next video chapter. That's okay. So he starts this video by saying he was once trying to chirps a girl who was leng with self-harm scars. I had to Google both these words because I'm not cool and down with the kids. Urban Dictionary tells me that this means he was trying to woo a sexually attractive woman. So, yeah, honestly, a really disrespectful way to start this video.
Several years ago, I was talking to a girl who had marks on her wrist from her cutting herself and harming herself. And we got talking. I was actually trying to chirp her because she was leng.
I think many of you might know, unless you don't because you're new here, self-harm is something that I've struggled with for a long, long time. I have not done it in a few months. I'm doing really, really well. I've made some fantastic progress. Recently, I got myself this really beautiful and special tattoo of an octopus and some mushrooms to cover up where a lot of my scarring was. I've still got plenty around here, but basically this is to help me cover up some scars and to give me motivation to stop hurting myself here. And so far, it's really, really working. Everything's going great. So when we talk about issues of self-harm, this is something that I feel really, really strongly about. And I can't help but find Jay's whole way of discussing this incredibly disrespectful. I have tried to date people in the past while having both recent cuts on my arms and older scarring. And I found that, with some exceptions, men generally fall into 4 categories when they see and notice this. 1, they understand, they're supportive, they don't draw too much attention to it, but they let you know that, you can talk to them if you want to. This is great. This is how my partner is now. It's wonderful. Love that. Why can't more men be like that? Then you have men who fall into the second category who are entirely dismissive of it. They call it attention seeking. They tell you should just stop. This one's really harmful because it makes the problem worse and it entirely invalidates your feelings. Men in the third category, they think they can be your knight in shining armour and cure you and fix you, and that once you have a good man like him, he'll finally fix all your mental health problems. This one, again, is terrible because it's dismissive of your feelings and your experiences, and it's also a man trying to make you dependent on him, and it's just patronising crap. I hate these men. And the worst thing is they think they're the good ones. They think they're doing something good and right by doing that, and that you owe them something, and it's just the worst thing. And finally, you get men who fall in the fourth category, where they seem like they understand, but ultimately they use this vulnerability of yours against you in a manipulative and abusive way. This is what my abusive ex did, and it turned me into an absolute wreck. Sadly, I have been on dates with people, mostly men, who fall into all of these categories, and yeah, it's hard. Putting it simply, dating when you're a person with self-harm issues is a minefield. And it's difficult to experience, and it's honestly difficult to talk about as well. But yeah, let's see what Jay has to say. Yeah, because I mean, he once spoke to a girl with scars, so he's the expert, right?
Several years ago, I was talking to a girl who had marks on her wrist from her cutting herself and harming herself. And we got talking. I was actually trying to chirp her because she was lame. But then when I got closer to her, I could see all these marks on her wrist and her arm and stuff like that. I was like, okay, let's get into it. I'm curious now.
Okay, I'm just going to say it. Massive red flag right here. Yeah? A man who's trying to hit on you and then starts to pry into your personal trauma and mental health problems just because he's curious, that's a no from me. And most women, I'd say. That is incredibly personal stuff. You don't want to just talk about that with just anyone. I used to have so many men and strangers talk to me about stuff like this when I used to have fresh cuts regularly, and it made me so uncomfortable. It makes you feel ashamed of yourself, like there's something wrong with you, like people are treating you like you're, I don't know, something in a zoo or a museum to be gawked at, and it's just horrible. It's so invasive. So invasive.
Let's get into it. I'm curious now. Why is this happening? Why did you do that to yourself? And she said when she was younger, she went through a lot of difficult times. And the way that she got through that was by cutting herself to make her feel pain and to get over that, whatever that situation was at hand, whether it was something with her parents, whether it was something with her peers or her general mental health at the time. And the thing that we got out of this conversation was that she was doing self-harm because she actually self-hated, which means she hated who she was in this existence.
Yeah, it is actually really common for self-harming behaviours to start when you're a teenager, but not always. And yes, it is often a coping mechanism for dealing with awful stuff going on in your life, but it's also a lot more complicated than that. I started back when I used to get bullied in school. So kids basically made it into this almost like game or competition between them where they used to see who could get me to cry first or who could get me to leave the classroom first by calling me names, throwing stuff at me, saying things. It was horrible. And I used to cope with that by trying to tune everyone out by hurting myself. And we had these really old metal radiators in Fulford that would get burning hot, and I started with holding my arm against that. That progressed to me kind of digging my nails into my arm until it bled, and eventually that progressed to me cutting myself as I got older. And that lasted a good 15 years or more. I'm 31 now. I have hurt myself within the last year. I still get the urges regularly to do it, and it's something I'm still dealing with. So this isn't just something that affects young people. I feel like self-harm in adults isn't really spoken about enough or taken as seriously as it should be. Anyway, for me, and it's very, very different for everyone. Everyone will have very different reasons for self-harming and why they do it and how it, and you know, the reasons why it helps them. But for me, the pain was firstly a distraction from everything going on around me. Secondly, I did see it as a form of self-punishment because I internalized all these things people were saying about me, about how I was weird and stupid and over-emotional and a mess and ugly and whatever. I internalized all that and I thought I deserve this. 3, it was a way to simply quieten my brain, which I guess is kind of similar to the distraction bit, but I don't know, kind of feels different in the moment. And fourthly, it was and always has been, and this can sound crazy to some people who don't understand it, but it was a method of self-care because the process afterwards of cleaning the wounds, bathing them, bandaging them, looking after myself, it was a way of physically healing myself that felt like I was emotionally healing myself. Does that make sense? So there was that self-care element in there as well. That's just me though. Other people will have different reasons and everyone's individual reasons are valid, absolutely. But to get to the point where I am today, where I can have the urges and mostly manage to stop myself and it's no longer a daily occurrence, that has taken me a hell of a lot of work. I have had to unpack all of this stuff with 3 different therapists over the years. I've had to do a hell of a lot of work to heal myself. One conversation with a guy in a bar going, "Oh my god, I figured you out. is because you hate yourself, yeah? Let me tell you how to fix that. It's disrespectful. It's an oversimplification of everything going on in a person's head, and ultimately it's harmful.
And the only way to get out of that self-hate is to start doing the disciplined activities to get you out of this rut that you're in. Because it's only a rut until you get back to your baseline and then above, right?
Jay, shut up. Tell me you know nothing about mental illness without telling me you know nothing about mental illness. Jay actually reminds me of this guy Jack that I dated for like a couple of weeks, couple of months, I don't know, who basically told me I would stop self-harming if I just went to the gym more. Yeah? Just lift some weights like I do. That's all you need. No, absolutely not. I'm not going to get over years of trauma and mental health problems that I still need medication for by putting myself in a situation where I find that I already find uncomfortable and anxiety inducing. Sure, he enjoyed going to the gym and it gave him a big dopamine boost. Me going to the gym is like panic attacks and anxiety and crying on the floor. But he was one of these guys who just thought I needed this knight in shining armor, and if he could just, take me to the gym a few times, I'd be cured. And when I didn't want to go to the gym, then it was my own fault. I still had mental health problems and was still self-harming because I was choosing to not fix them by not going to the gym. He was a douchebag. He really, really was. He's also the one that I dumped because he couldn't stop talking about the explicit details of every single girl he'd slept with, and then physically kicked Kyra off the bed one time. Like, physically kicked her. Piece of crap. Absolute piece of crap. That was too much for me. That was my final straw. I was gone. But the point is, they're the vibes I'm getting from Jay here. Jay then compares self-harm to how he used to binge eat and watch porn and how most people watch TV. Now, I'm not going to say they can't be similar for some people because, everyone has different coping mechanisms for different things. But it's this bit that bothers me.
It's all a way to distract you and take your mind away from focusing on how to actually better your life, because that takes work initially until you start to get the positive feedback loop. Then you're like, oh shit, like I've gone to the gym for 30 days. I could start seeing some muscle. I'm going to keep going. Oh, my aunt said I look really good the other day. I lost a lot of weight. That's a positive feedback loop. Now I'm going to keep going.
Yes, people who want to self-harm, it's just a distraction from wanting to better your life. You just need more motivation to read a book and then you'll stop self-harming, right? No, shut up. That's just not how it works. Some of the times when I was self-harming most were the times when, to the outside world, I looked to be the most successful, There was this one time when I was head of marketing of this large online book retailer. Another point, I was successfully self-employed and doing really well work-wise, and I was still self-harming every day. Both of these times, I was doing good, Graduated from one of the best universities in the world. I had all these hobbies. Yes, Jay, I was reading like 10 to 15 books a month. I had my own home, money, was doing okay. I had amazing groups of friends, but my life was, to the outsider, absolutely fine. I was constantly in this state of learning and succeeding in so many areas and doing really, really well, but the problem was my mental health was a mess. This wasn't just something I could just decide to stop and think my way out of by just setting some more career goals or, read a few more books. That'll give you something to focus on. That's not how it works. I needed therapy, I needed medication, I needed help. I needed to get my brain under control and heal from a hell of a lot of trauma I'd had. I can't help but think that Jay's advice here is just a major misunderstanding on his part of what the cause of mental health problems are. And this isn't just like a misunderstanding where you're like, oops, I thought this TV character said this, but it was actually this one. It's not that kind of misunderstanding, is it? This is the kind of misunderstanding that causes real harm and has real world consequences that harms people and could cause someone to end up dead. That might sound extreme, but when we're talking about mental health stuff like this, it's really, really true.
So with the self-harm thing, it's just the same thing, but on a, more physical, like blood-inducing level. You're cutting yourself because you feel some kind of, you get a feeling, and sometimes people are numb, right? So they get a feeling just by doing that. It's like, I am alive kind of thing. And that is no better than all the other things. It's actually probably worse because you're leaving scars on your body, right? But it all comes from self-hate. So what you want to do is, or what you may want to think about, which is something that I've done to get out of my binge eating and consumption habits, is to focus on having a much simpler life. However, make the things that you do highly impactful. So this basically means for me, I've got 4 things to do in my life. It's to exercise, it's to record videos, it's to spend time with my wife, it's to spend time with my son. I've cleared up my act. I'm listening to audiobooks pretty much every day at the moment. I consume content that is going to help me level up my mind, sharpen myself, and get better rather than just watching entertainment content.
Damn, if only I'd known sooner. I could have stopped self-harming 15 years ago if I'd just gone to the gym, started my YouTube channel, and listened to audiobooks. You see what I mean? It's stupid.
If you're in this period of self-hate and self-harm, then the way to get out of it is to focus on habits that you can turn into disciplines, that you can turn into a new identity, and then you start in living that way from now on, in a self-loving kind of way. There's a quote that I like to live by at the moment, which is, discipline is the highest form of self-love. Because imagine if you did this every single day. You wake up early, 3, 4, 5 a.m., for example. You did some meditation in the morning. You jotted your thoughts down for the day so your mind is clear, right? Then you went ahead and did something for your business, whether it's making calls or sending emails or doing like the tasks that can't be done before most other people are awake, so like before 9 a.m. You've done most of your admin busy tasks for the day before people have even woken up for the day, right? Imagine what type of mental shift that will do for you, the psychological benefits that will have. You'll be like, I'm just a fucking boss. You see what I mean? So then it comes to like 9 o'clock. Okay, cool. Maybe you have a job still, like I do. Then you go to work, you do your thing. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. Do these things that will give you delayed gratification, avoid the instant gratification stuff, and in 30 days, that's when you start reaping the benefits, and you'll get the positive feedback loops, and then you'll be like, this is the path I need to stay on, not the self-harm, not the binge eating, not the cutting myself, not the injuring my body, not the wanking away, not the drinking away, not the smoking away, not the binge eating, binge watching TV, the porn consumption, all these different things, right? These are the things you want to avoid.
You know, I wish it was this simple. I really, really do. Just get some hobbies and learn more. You'll fix all your mental health problems. I wish it was that simple. But that's just not how the real world works, is it? The other thing that I think Jay fails to realise, and I don't know if this is true of anyone else, but this is like only my own experience, was that my need to self-harm was never a deliberate choice I was making. There were never days where I felt, oh, you know what, I'm feeling a bit down today. Let me just cut myself. No, it was never a choice. It was always an immediate reaction to certain feelings. It was always this emotion of like, oh, my head feels loud, I need to quiet it. And then I'd almost like dissociate and cut myself without thinking about it. And then afterwards you stop and realise what you've done and feel immense guilt. But it was an immediate reaction thing, not a conscious choice, you know? So the way that I learned to kind of cope with that was to get help in slowing down those thoughts in the first place, being able to recognise those signs of when that fog was coming in and stop myself before I dissociate and before it turns into something I can't control anymore. I don't think Jay is understanding that or taking any of that into account, and that's a big problem. In summary, Jay's entire approach to mental health problems, including self-harm, boils down to, if you have mental health problems, ignore them, suppress them, and instead just try to paper over the cracks by being too busy to think about them. Which is honestly why men have such poor mental health today and are suffering so badly. It's not okay. I don't care what your gender is. If you have a mental health problem, you need to address them. And there's absolutely no shame in that. It's a wonderfully brave and empowering thing to do. Trying to suppress and ignore your problems is only going to make them 10 times worse in the long run. Jay's advice is what harms people. Jay's advice to suppress all these feelings is what kills people. One of my friends, Charles, is at the minute training to run 90 marathons in 90 days for a charity called James's Place, who offers support to men with mental health problems and aim to prevent suicide amongst men. So their website says that men consistently account for over 75% of suicides in the UK, and that in general, men are less likely to access psychological therapies than women, which is what puts men at such high risks of suicide and suicide attempts. The advice that people like Jay give to just ignore your problems and distract yourself instead of addressing them and understanding them is dangerous and is literally what is killing thousands of men every year. If you want to find out more about James's Place, they're a great charity. I will link to them in the video description so you can find out more, and I'll also leave a link to Charles's fundraiser too if you also want to support him. He is doing a great thing for a really great cause and also releasing a record along the way, so more amazing music in the world. Incredible. He has been so incredibly open about his own struggles and how he is working through them, and he's just an incredibly brave and inspiring man. He is, or at least I think he still is, on the same medication as me, so it's nice to know that someone else is kind of going through similar stuff to me and coping with it in similar but different ways. He's just, like I say, he's brave, he's inspiring, he's absolutely incredible, and he's just the opposite of a man like Jay in every way. Right, you know what, we've heard enough of that rubbish. He has another extremely distasteful video titled, "Do you want to kill yourself? Watch this first." This is the one that he sent to the suicidal, vulnerable teenage boy. In this video, he opens by saying, "You're just playing a character. Kill your mental self, not your physical self, and just take on a new character." Telling someone to kill themselves, but it's okay, I just mean mentally, is still incredibly dangerous. Oh, God. I would love to know what a therapist has to say in response to this, because I think they would be just as shocked and appalled as I am.
Do you want to kill yourself? Now, if you're in this position, I really do feel for you, because it is a shit position to be in. But the only thing I can truly say on this is don't kill your physical self, kill your mental self. If you just use this feeling that you're feeling right now and realize that the character you've been playing up till this point has not been serving you, is the one that wants to die, then the whole side of suicide thing takes a different angle to it, because you're killing your mental self, not your physical self. You're killing the character that you've been playing this whole time, rather than the physical body that can embody another character. So use this feeling as an opportunity to learn everything you can about yourself and who you want to become next. Practicing gratitude is one of the most important things you can do for your mental health. If you just think about how lucky you are just to be a human, in fact, that, like all the other animals that are out there that exist today, you're a human. You probably live in a home if you're watching this video. You probably have a smartphone if you're watching this video. You probably have some kind of money that you can buy things that can improve your life if you're watching this video. Think about just being human, just how grateful you have to be just human. I have a field right in front of my house. I know there's mice, I know there's toads, whatever. When a combine harvester comes and clears that row of wheat, they are all getting eaten up in that harvester. You don't have to live in a field. You live in a home. You live in a comfortable place, most likely.
I just have no words for how bad this is. I'm just going to leave this one here for you all to comment on, because I cannot. Who actually comes up with this stuff of like, don't kill yourself because at least you're not a toad being crushed by a harvester? What's wrong with him?
Once you're born in some kind of animal species, once you're born, you're done. You're done by yourself. If you're a turtle, you get born on a beach and then you go straight into the ocean and you don't even see your parents ever again. You don't see your siblings ever again. You just have to figure it out. That's just one thing. Think about everything else. If you like drive a car and then you need to go to Scotland, for example, when you're in London, That, I don't know, 400, 500-mile journey can be done now because of the world that you live in. You don't have to take horseback all the way up there. You don't have to walk all the way up there. That you don't have to, like, if you wanted to, you could fly all the way up there and take an hour.
It gets worse. Don't kill yourself because you don't need to go from London to Scotland on horseback. Jay, please stop. Please.
So if your life sucks and you're thinking of ending it, just end the mental aspect of it. That's fine. End your life, but in the mental capacity, not the physical capacity. When you end the physical capacity, you're hurting yourself as well as others who want you in their life long term. When you hurt the mental capacity, or when you change the mental capacity, you're only enriching your own life. So your physical life will be better as well as your mental life, as well as your family's life will be better as well, because they can see that you're having a mental shift into a better person, into a more loving person, into a more grateful person, into a person that gives more perhaps, into a person who's more happier with their lives, and in turn, the people around you will become happier. So I'm not even saying don't kill yourself. I think you should, but only in the mental capacity. I want to make this very, very clear. Do kill yourself in the mental game.
I'm not even saying don't kill yourself. I think you should. How is this allowed on YouTube? How? I can't. Oh, for God's sake. It is so dangerous to be speaking to vulnerable people, especially vulnerable children and teenagers like this. This is dangerous. He then again goes on to tell people that one of the reasons they're suicidal is because they aren't listening to enough audiobooks. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Another aspect I want to talk about is personal development and reading and listening to audiobooks and videos that can change your mindset. If you're not doing these things, where are you going to get the information needed to change your mind? You're not. If you're just going to go out and about speaking to the same people you've been speaking to, doing the same things you've been doing, you're never going to actually get anything different in your life. You're not going to get results. You're not going to actually change. What you need to do is start your personal development journey, your self-improvement journey, self-help journey. Read books. Buy as many non-fiction self-help books as possible. Learn the things that you need, that technique-wise, and also on a philosophical level to change your mental state.
This is just a blatant misunderstanding of what mental health, depression, anxiety, having suicidal urges. It's just a misunderstanding of what it's actually like. He should not be talking about this. He should not be allowed to talk about this. He is going to end up killing someone here. Seriously. Okay, let's move on. Some of his more recent videos are focused around dating advice and being a pickup artist. This one in particular reads like something straight out of a Roosh V book. It is called Day Game and Cold Approach Mini Course, Complete Dating Tutorial, which I think to the ordinary person translates to something like how to creep on women during the day when they just want to be left alone.
Alright, so this is a very short video on the entire process of game. So if you just get this video down pat, exactly what I'm saying in terms of meeting someone and just taking them on a date or arranging a date from there, then you can kind of like get away with this, like bypassing all the years of reading that you may need to do if you're like someone in who was like a few years ago. So here it is, okay? Hold a woman's gaze, don't squirm, you can smile, acknowledge them perhaps with a nod, say hi, don't flirt, just be friendly, make them want you, talk, learn about them, arrange a time, perhaps even then and there, where you can both grab a drink to get to know each other more. That is the concept of game. That is going out there, meeting someone, smiling with them, understanding that you're there to kind of like learn about each other, as well as like show that there's a spark of chemistry or like potentially something intimate could happen. You're not just there as a friendly vibe kind of thing.
He really does use a lot of words without actually saying anything of substance.
So when it comes to the holding woman's gaze, a lot of guys do this. They just go out there and they see a woman, and then the woman looks at them, and then the first thing they do is they look down. That just shows you're weak. It just shows you're like not the man that she needs to be in her life.
Okay, so here's where we're discussing the eye contact bit, like I mentioned earlier. First up, and I'll say this again, as an autistic woman, any person, especially a man, who aggressively tries to hold my gaze, the only response you're getting out of me is that I am going to run home crying. I am not comfortable with that at all. I can just about make eye contact with Kieran for like a few seconds now, and that's nearly 2 years into our relationship. Just getting there with that. Anyone else does it and I'm so uncomfortable. Secondly, just like his Reddit post that we discussed earlier, this is just commodifying women. It is reducing human interactions down to how can I minimize my effort to get maximum reward, and it is gross. A woman isn't, a washing machine. You don't need a step-by-step guide, press this button, and then you'll get it to do this thing that you want.
Whereas what a real man would do, someone like your boy right here, when I was single, I should add, is I would like walk wherever I'm going, whatever, lock eyes with a girl, and then do not look away. Just smile nicely, and then just say, hey.
Sorry, but a real man isn't online trying to scam vulnerable men and teenagers out of money. Sorry.
Human sub-communication, right? Body language. As soon as you see someone look away, or especially if a girl sees a guy look away when they're staring, when they're like looking at each other, or catch eyes or glance at each other, it just shows that woman that guy is not serious, or he's not like real man material. Okay, so just don't do that.
I can't be the only woman watching this who finds this intimidating, right? A stranger walks up to you and just stares you down, even if you're not reciprocating, because he thinks it's some power move to get sex from you. That is scary. When I met Kieran, he didn't aggressively maintain eye contact with me. He understood and respected my boundaries, that eye contact is something I wasn't comfortable with, and he didn't force it. That is a real man. And by real man, I mean a decent human being.
I mean, if you actually want to go, just be nice, just be cool, ask her how's the day going, etc. Say you think she looks nice today or whatever. It could be anything. It just don't flirt. Just don't flirt. Yeah, just don't say dumb shit to flirt. Be friendly. That's all. Be nice and let her see like, okay, he's a nice guy. Let me see where this goes, kind of thing. Rather than like, he's such a cringe dickhead.
This might be good advice if, one, it wasn't calculated and planned in advance, and two, you weren't just doing this to random women you see on the street. I really hate it when I'm outside alone in public and a guy is like, hey, what are you doing with your day? Why are you alone? And they do that fake friendliness thing because they're trying to hit on you. It makes me so uncomfortable, and I've spoken to a lot of my friends and they say the exact same thing. I don't know one woman who actually likes it. There are appropriate places to approach someone, either for dating or friendship, you know? Bars, social gatherings, clubs and societies, meetups, like, I don't know, a local board games night, or I go to a local writing group. You know, places that you go specifically to socialise. I and most other people I know don't want to be bothered when we're out alone doing stuff alone. If I'm out shopping or at a museum by myself or something like that, I am there to enjoy that activity by myself. I'm not there to socialise and be bothered by other people. When I want to meet other people, I go specifically to social activities, like my writing group, like a board games night, you know? There are ways to have conversations with strangers, even in non-social settings, that's not creepy though. And just to give you two very, very different examples here, just from my own personal life. If you've been following me for a while, you might see on Instagram and stuff, I post a lot of like animal pictures and stuff like that. And I'm obsessed with animals and nature. And actually, when I talk about my book at the end of this video, that's a big part of it. And one of the things I really love doing, especially by myself, are going to ethical zoos, wildlife conservation places, animal sanctuaries, all that sort of thing. I absolutely love it. And probably, I'd say maybe 60-70% of the time I tend to go alone, usually because I like going on weekdays when there aren't that many people there and it's not that busy. Sometimes Kieran comes with me, sometimes my sister comes with me. I've been to Tropical World with my friend Joe. All that was really fun, but most of the time I go alone. It's what I like to do. I like to take my time, take lots of photos. I love it. A couple of months back, I was in Blackpool for a friend's show one night, and I took myself to the zoo there the next day. And while I was in one of the monkey buildings, I was in this whole building completely alone, because like I said, it was a very quiet day. And I kind of started interacting with two of the little gibbons in their enclosure. And they were kind of like playing with each other, and they were coming over to me and they were looking at my camera. They were like really shocked. So I turned the camera around and I started showing themselves pictures of themselves on the camera. I'm like, look, this is you. This is your face. Do you recognise yourself? And they would come up to the glass and they're like, whoa, what is this? And they were like tapping each other and pointing at the camera. It was very, very cute. It was absolutely adorable. And as I was doing that, these two women walked into the monkey house area and they were like, oh my God, this is so cute. And they made a joke about like, oh, are we interrupting something here? Like, you know, as in they just like walked into two friends hanging out or something like that, but it was me and the monkeys. They made a joke about that. It was really cute. They asked me about the gibbons and what they've been doing. Then they gave me some recommendations for other things to see at the zoo. Lovely little chat. Really, really nice. We shared a cute moment, shared some information with each other, had a little laugh. It was lovely. I wasn't in a place where like I was looking to socialise with other people, but it was a very nice social interaction where we just enjoyed talking for the sake of talking. It was really, really nice. And neither of us went into that interaction with trying to get something out of the other person other than just enjoying that moment and sharing a cute moment together. Compare that to what happened to me the other night where I went to a comedy show by myself, had a really good time, it was really fun, enjoyed it, and then afterwards my friend Joe texted me and he was like, hey, I'm just finishing up a set with a band at this pub that was basically on my way home, and he's like, do you want to come join us for a drink after? I was like, yeah, absolutely, that'd be great, thank you. So I walk like 20 minutes to this pub. It's on my way home, but it's not close to the theatre where I saw the comedy show. It's not a pub you would generally go to after that show unless you were specifically going there for a reason, right? So I get to the pub, see Joe's finishing up his set, give him a little wave, and popped to the loo, came back down, went to the bar to get a drink for me and Joe. And as I'm stood there at the bar, this guy comes up to me and his friend's kind of lurking behind, and one of them's like, oh, what do you think of Simon tonight then? And I was like looking around, I'm like, but there's no Simon in this band, like what does he mean? And he goes, Simon Brodkin, you're at the theatre, right? And I was like, yeah. And he just kept going and going. And he was like, why are you here alone? Like, why were you at the theatre alone? Oh, like, you must not have a boyfriend. You must be single. I'm like, nope, I have a boyfriend. He's just at home. And he then started like insulting Kieran and being like, oh, you know, if you were my girlfriend, I wouldn't let you out alone. I'd come with you. I'm like, I like doing things alone. And he was getting really uncomfortable and really, really pushy. And he was clearly trying to hit on me. And he'd clearly followed me 20 minutes from a theatre and then followed me into this pub that is, like I say, not a normal pub you would go to. He hadn't just organically decided to come to this pub as well. You know what I mean? Especially because the pub was closing soon and I was only there because I was seeing Joe after his band had finished playing. It creeped me out so much. It was inappropriate. The fact that he'd gone out of his way to manufacture this situation, knowing I was alone. We weren't just sharing a nice moment about the show organically. He'd gone out of his way to essentially manufacture this so he could ask me about it. And then once I had, started insulting me and my partner. It just, very, very uncomfortable. And thankfully, Joe came over and like squished between us and was like, hi, do you want help carrying the drinks? I was like, yes, please. And he saved me, thank God. But that's the difference. The first interaction with the two women was organic and it was nice and it was lovely and it was just a conversation for the sake of enjoying conversation. The second one was an unwanted conversation with someone who was creepy and had manufactured the whole situation. It made me very, very uncomfortable. The latter is what Jay is promoting here and in all his videos. He doesn't want natural conversation where you might just hit it off with someone or not. He is forcing interactions with women who are alone, who you seek out because they're alone and therefore vulnerable in some way, because you want something from her. That is uncomfortable and it's scary.
Really, you just want to kind of like see if she passes the vibe check at this point and just like see if you two match on an intellectual basis as well as like on a witty kind of basis. If you can have like bust jokes together and stuff like that, that's kind of what you're looking for there.
Jay, sorry, but you are not passing any vibe check right now. Also, I don't know what a bus joke is, so I'm just going to skip over that bit. Jay is from London and uses lots of words I don't understand because Yorkshire.
But this one hopefully will get you to a point where you're just like approaching every single girl that comes your way, that you're attracted to, that you like, and that could potentially go somewhere.
And there it is. This is the problem. Going back to what we spoke about with that Reddit post, this idea that you'll just take anyone that'll have you, it commodifies women, it dehumanizes us, and it's creepy as hell. Another video of Jay's is titled The Right Way to Find Love in 2024. Let's give this a watch together.
So, I got a cousin, right? Young, single motherfucker. And he's talking about, if you need to read a book on a relationship, you must not be good at relationships, right? But he's young, he's single, he thinks he's on top of the world. How do I know this? Because when I was that young, I also thought the same way. I thought I was fucking invincible. And like, it's good to have that kind of level of self-belief, but at the same time, having that arrogance that you know everything, even though you're like 18, 19, 20, 21, is just dumb as fuck.
Yeah, kind of like the arrogance you have for standing there thinking you know everything, whilst at the same time you're dehumanizing women, calling people dumb and swearing at them, yeah? Genuinely though, I don't know why this man needs to swear so much. Does he think it makes him cool or relatable? Because just, no.
So, this is a lesson for investing in your relationship, for example, right? So let's just say you meet a beautiful young woman, or if you're a girl, if you meet a handsome, dashing young man, just like whoever you want to think about, and then you just fall in love. You just start going on dates, etc. You go out, go on holidays, all these different good stuff. You get married, maybe have kids with this person, and all of a sudden you're like 7, 8, 10 years in, and you start feeling like hate, not hate, but like irritation towards this person, or like annoyance towards this person, right? And all relationships have these like up and down kind of like patterns, right? But at the same time, I guarantee 99+% of people don't invest in their relationship, like knowledge base.
Once again, like I said earlier, he uses so many words without ever actually saying much. And sorry, but 99% of people don't invest in their relationship, like knowledge base, is such a nothing sentence and claim with absolutely nothing to back it up. Basically, in this whole video, he's like, no one in the world knows how to do relationships, and that's why you're all getting divorced. Like, one of his big things is that apparently people are choosing the wrong partners, and maybe there's like a little bit of truth in that, because I've spoken many times in videos about the importance I feel in being intentional in your relationships. And that includes friendships, and that does include friendships and everything as well. But I think it's really important to know what you want and aim for it so you don't accidentally end up messing other people around. I think that's so important. If you just want to casually date someone, be upfront with that. If you're looking for something more serious and long term, be upfront with that. And if that's what you want as well, knowing your core values and the core values you want in a partner is really useful. It's something my therapist taught me, and it has been absolutely invaluable and made all my relationships and friendships so much stronger and healthier, and I really love it. And a lot of that starts with doing a lot of self-work to really get to know yourself and love yourself and accept yourself and know what you really want. And once you know that, to also know that you deserve it and not be afraid to go out and get it. Jay's advice is, it's okay, I guess. He just wants you to read some books about relationships, which is fine. I love a good book. You know me, if I want to learn something new, I will go and read like 5 books on the subject and then be like, yeah, you know what? I know like 1% of the knowledge in the world on this topic now. It's a good start. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I often give big, long, further reading lists on the ones that are quite like educational and fact heavy. And a few of the books that I've recommended in the past are relationship-based books. You know, I've recommended some by Esther Perel and people like that. What is worrying, though, is not that Jay is recommending you read books to learn about relationships, but the kinds of books he's recommending. And here's where we talk about Mark Manson.
Remedies to this could be just picking up a book about how to salvage your marriage or your relationship. Or if you're new to the game, if you're a guy, books like Models by Mark Manson, which is all about how to meet women. If you never met women out there, it's a fantastic book to get started with.
Mark Manson is someone who writes a whole bunch of nothing. I read his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, when I was in my early 20s. And you know, I actually thought, yeah, this guy, he's confident. That's quite inspiring. And then I read the book again a few years later and realised it is a bunch of macho bravado with no substance underneath, and he is mostly talking it off his bum. Mark writes for men who want to feel smart but actually only ever read self-help books, and nothing that's actually mentally stimulating or intellectually challenging. He writes for men who just want to be told that they are right and never have their worldview actually challenged. People like Jay. I, in researching this video, particularly liked this one review of the book on Goodreads, which said, "This book was clearly written for people who don't read." Yeah. But that's just Mark's most famous book. He has actually written quite a lot of books, and one of the ones that people don't know about too much is the first book he ever wrote, and this is the one that Jay recommends. It's called Models: Attract Women Through Honesty, and it is a mess. Let me give you a very brief review of this book, and by brief I mean I have several pages of script written about it. There's a lot to say. Let's start with a few passages from the introduction. Mark writes, "I read a couple of books with pickup lines and techniques and went out to bars 4 to 5 nights a week. Does he not have anything better to do? Approaching, flirting and failing, pushing and pulling, effing and floundering for those 36 glorious months of experimentation. I grew a reputation locally for my exploits. Soon men whom I'd never met were emailing me asking if they could come hang out with me to see how I interacted with women, to watch me in action. This led me in a winding, twisted path. It began with entries into and exits out of the so-called pickup artist community. I researched social psychology, theories behind attraction, historiographies on human sexuality, went on strip club binges, read books on NLP and cognitive therapy, attended various self-help seminars, and taught a few myself, shared hotel rooms with runway models, experimented with touch healing, and had a few alternative therapy mishaps, engaged in gender arguments with feminists, and read every crappy dating book on the market." There were a lot of words there. If you found that hard to follow, basically Mark says that he learned how to manipulate, talk down to, and demean women. Oh, and don't forget he also throws in that if he ever spoke to a woman who was a strong, self-assured feminist, he'd speak over her as much as possible to show what a big, strong, manly man he is. Boo, feminism. He goes on to write, "There's been a void of what men are, what they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to behave, and until now, no one had moved to fill that void. Call it overly ambitious, but this book aims to fill that void, to help create the future models of masculine behaviour. Models to be attractive, powerful, and in control of your relationships with women and with your general life." The first chapter of this book talks about how men need to stop being needy and how the way to seduce a woman is to be less invested in her than she is in you. In chapter 3, he brags how when he was in college, he, and I quote, "started hanging out with a couple of guys who got more women than anyone else I knew, like Matt, who banged girls like it was his part-time job. What I learned is that regardless of what you say to a woman, the intention and implications of why you are saying it are far more powerful than the words themselves. You can say the lamest and grossest, or funniest, depending on your perspective, thing to women, and if the sub-communication is, 'I really don't care if you laugh or run away horrified, but here's who I am, take it or leave it,' this sub-communicates a rock-bottom level of investment and an incredibly high level of vulnerability. Does this mean that saying grotesque things to women for no other reason than to self-amuse will get you laid? Not always, and not necessarily often, but you could do worse." I can't believe I'm saying this. His precursor to this story was saying how his friend used to get laid a lot by getting drunk in bars and shouting at women, "Can I pee in your butt?" And I'm sorry, but I just have to disagree with his entire premise here. I don't care if you're trying to show the world what a big, powerful, manly man you are, or whatever else your intentions are. What you do actually say to other people, especially women, matters. This is spoken like a guy who's clearly never lived with the same level of fear that women and non-binary people often do. He says, remember, what you actually say doesn't matter. Why you say it matters. Always. No exceptions. This is not true. This is absolutely not true. He also spends a lot of time throwing around misogynistic insults to put down a certain type of woman who he deems not as valuable, not as good, worthy of being put down or something or other. He says, when I first started going out, I spent a lot of time beating my head against a wall trying to pick up the hot club girls at loud nightclubs. You know, fake tans, fake tits, fake hair, fake personalities. Now I do have to ask, were they really fake, or did they just not tolerate the crap coming out of your mouth and now you're trying to put them down because of it? I value curiosity, education, intelligence, and authenticity. I also don't value fake looks, such as pounds of makeup, bronzer, hair extensions, or super tight skirts. He does realise that you can be educated, intelligent, an authentic woman, and also love makeup and hair extensions, right? It's not a one or the other. Plenty of women are both. That said, it's not like anyone with any actual intelligence will go for a man like Mark, is it? He then goes on a several page long rant trying to put down any women that aren't interested in him because if they're not into him, it must be because they have some sort of trauma, not just that they have common sense. There are a lot of women who, for whatever reason, are afraid of their own sexuality and or openly sexual men. They harbour trust issues and resentment with men. Usually this is because they have a history of some sort of emotional or sexual abuse and or they've experienced a long string of disappointments with the men in their life. Their view of male sexuality is negative, and when they are confronted with an honest and attractive man, they'll often attack you and try to tear you down for it. There are the women who will get angry and say snide things like, "I bet you say that to all the girls," or will find a reason to push you away and then regret it and want you back. Mark, are these honest, attractive men in the room with us right now? Or maybe these women just don't want to be dehumanized by creeps like you and you can't accept that. Ever thought of that? Later in chapter 5, he complains about being kicked out of a bar for creeping on women, even though he totally didn't do anything, which I absolutely do not believe. And then he throws around more misogynistic insults, this time at college girls, where he says, "I'm talking to a super cute blonde, college girl, sorority, ditzy as hell and a true pain to interact with. You know those people who interrupt you constantly and redirect every possible conversation back to some inane story about themselves? She was one of those. It was like being socially waterboarded. But she was hot, and I was young and needy and crazy horny and honestly had nothing better to do, so I talked to her, painfully and begrudgingly. Somewhere in between trying to decide whether to drown myself in alcohol or drown her in alcohol, to stab myself in the face with a broken beer bottle, or to stab her," and he goes on and on and on, and ha 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 ha, violence against women is so funny, isn't it? This man is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Things get really bad in the last part of the book in particular, with passages like, "There is no such thing as a man who is adored by women who isn't also creepy some of the time. The fact of life is that if you are a man who expresses his sexuality freely, and you should, some women, some of the time, are gonna find you creepy. It's simply unavoidable. Give yourself permission to be creepy. Can we not, please? There's already too many creepy men in the world." He then claims that women are too emotional and untrustworthy and irrational to actually know what creepy is, and that they only call men creepy because the men they call creepy make us feel insecure. No. None of this makes sense. Generally, we call a man creepy when he's being creepy, and he makes us fear for our safety. It's as simple as that. He then tells men to employ cold reading techniques when talking to women and spend several pages explaining what a joke is. So ridiculous. By giving examples of jokes about women being fat and ugly. It's really pathetic. He finally writes a whole chapter about how he's never managed to please a woman in bed. Well, he doesn't say it in so many words, but the implication is there, because remember, it doesn't matter what words he actually says. It's the meaning behind them that matters. And the meaning behind them is that he can't please a woman. He says, "Female arousal is somewhat narcissistic in nature. Women are turned on by being wanted, by being desired. I have a friend, do you though? He gets physical with women. He touches them early. He touches them often. And even if they don't reciprocate or move away, he tries again. In other words, he's always going for it." Ah, so your friend's a rapist. Got it. He has no concept of boundaries, repeatedly invades women's personal spaces, and touches them without consent. He goes on to encourage men to be physically assertive with women, but reminds men that women are like an oven. They need to be warmed up and preheated. He does make a point, thankfully, to say not to rape women. Cannot believe that is something that has to be said, but here we are. That says he makes the point so poorly. He gets the whole concept of consent completely backwards. With consent, if it's not an enthusiastic yes, it should be taken as a no, right? We all get that. But for Mark, unless she's physically pushing you off, you should just keep going. It is honestly scary to read. Let's pick out a few select passages. Okay, this one, for example. A quick note about rape, because unfortunately I have to put something in here. Remember, our general guideline here is that we continue until a woman makes us stop. This means she physically stops you, i.e. moves your hands off her, moves away from you, puts her clothes back on, etc. Or clearly and verbally says stop, or no. And what about the people who freeze up or simply can't speak in fear? What about the ones who aren't physically strong enough to move you away or push your hands away? What about the ones who are physically incapacitated? What about the ones you've coerced into sex? It's still rape in those cases if they haven't given enthusiastic consent. This advice here is dangerous. He then gives very specific and scary instructions for how to have sex. Apparently he tells men that they have to be dominant and should get physical, spank her, pull her hair without asking first. You should just do it with every woman regardless. When in reality, no. Only do that stuff if you have prior consent. Ask first. Don't go around just hitting someone without their consent. He literally says, don't ever ask, is this okay? Do you want to do X? Just do it and stop later if she doesn't like it and apologize. I'm sorry, but no. This is rape. Just because you apologize afterwards doesn't stop it being rape. You can't just say, well, I did rape her, but I said sorry after. No. How the hell did this book get published? Because it's literally giving instructions on how to rape a woman, and it is so damn dangerous. Let me remind you while we're talking about this book, this is the book that Jay Mistry recommended for how to get better with women. You know, he recommended a book where Mark Manson gives specific instructions on how to rape a woman and apologize after. That's the kind of man Jay Mistry is. But it's not the only book he recommends.
Or how about The Way of the Superior Man by David Data to level up your masculine energy?
On Googling this book, it suddenly became clear to me where Jay is regurgitating so many of his awful ideas from. The Way of the Superior Man is a terrible, terrible book, let me just quiet that I also read probably about 60% of, and it's just terrible. I could do a whole video on this as well. It has stupid chapters with titles like, you will often want more than one woman, which says, the fact is, you probably want to have sex with other women besides your intimate partner. How you respond to this fact is a reflection of your purpose in life. If your purpose is to enjoy physical pleasure no matter the consequences, then you should screw as many women as you want. If your purpose is to be a nice boy and please mummy, then you should do what makes your woman happy. If your purpose is to liberate yourself and others into love and freedom, then you should do whatever magnifies your love and freedom in your life and in the lives of those whom your actions affect. There's another chapter which is titled, Young Women Offer You a Special Energy. Get ready for this because it will make you sick. It's really, really grim. Imagine you are driving your 18-year-old babysitter home one evening. She's so fresh, so innocent, so alive. You can feel that she is totally open to you. You consider all the consequences. You look at her radiant skin, her clear eyes, her incredible smile. The way she moves, talks, and laughs makes you happy and fills you with energy. You arrive at her home, she says goodnight, leaves the car, and enters her house. You sit in the car for a moment, breathing slowly and deeply, smiling. There's something unique about being with a young woman, and all men with masculine sexual essences feel it. You feel rejuvenated by her. Just sitting next to a young woman can make you happy and fill you with life force. You might have nothing in common, but that doesn't matter. It is her energy that delights and inspires you. Uncompromised, youthful, feminine energy turns you on and opens your heart. You actually feel happier around young women. You feel more energetic, alive, and loving. As women get older, they typically take on more and more masculine tasks and responsibilities in our culture. So their radiance begins to decrease. I can't read any more of this absolute disgusting nonsense. Other chapters in this book include how you shouldn't ever listen to women, how you should have sex with them savagely while pinning her down, or you'll have rape fantasies or watch soaps. This is absolutely unhinged. In another part, he writes, for most men, their woman is replaceable. Harsh but true. If you are like most men, you know deep down that if you were to lose your present woman, you would deeply grieve, but you could eventually find another. Many times, in fact, you probably fantasized about finding another woman even before you lose the one you have. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. You can see why Jay is spouting all this crap that he is, because he's believing this absolute nonsense. Honestly, this book is way worse than Mark Manson's, but I cannot stomach it anymore, so we're going to move on quickly and quietly, and maybe I'll go have a cry off camera as well. It really scares me that there are men out there listening to this stuff and internalizing this stuff and treating women badly because of it. Kirby is really having a good snore in the background. Honestly, this makes me quite scared of Jay. I think he is probably a dangerous man, and I think behind his friendly, ooh, I'm just a little soft boy front that he's got going on, he's actually a pretty dangerous predator. At least that's the vibe I'm getting. I can't say for sure. It's just the impression I get. While we're on the topic of his dating advice though, let's watch his video, Please Help, Is She Into Me? In this video, a teenage boy asks for advice on whether a girl likes him or not, and Jay's advice is to just stop her, get her alone, and kiss her.
Just all you need to do at this point is grow a pair and actually stop her at some point when you two are alone, look deep into her eyes and give her a lips. That's literally it. And then from there, you will pretty much be like a bit more than just a friend at this point.
Terrible. No discussion of consent, no telling him to maybe discuss his feelings with her, no telling him to maybe ask her out on an actual date, just this. Like I say, clearly the lack of consent discussed in those books he's reading has had a terrible influence on Jay, and now he's trying to have a terrible influence on young, vulnerable teenage boys. He's then totally disrespectful for this teenager. He's then totally disrespectful for this teenager who's asking for his advice by telling him he probably hasn't got much to say and that he should just be a man and just be like, so I kissed you, so what?
But the thing is, you are probably a young dude and you're probably nervous and you probably just don't know what the fuck's going on. And also, you like having her tell to get you to participate in things, you probably have not much to say in general anyway. So yes, do what I said, do that thing, get her alone, and then just look into her eyes deeply. Don't laugh, don't giggle, don't break the tension. Hold the tension, look into her eyes, give her a lips, and then after that, don't smile. You can smile, but don't laugh and break the tension and stuff like that. Hold the tension. That's when you want to get used to those like seemingly awkward moments. You want to just hold that and be the man in the situation and hold your frame and be like, yeah, look, I'm here. Yeah, I lipsed you, so what, kind of thing, in your mind, not out loud. Right?
Can we please start a petition to stop this man from ever being around children, because his advice is terrible and dangerous.
Girls like that shit, and then she'll be like, okay, I'm with a real man type of thing. And you need to kind of set the lead now.
Oh, Jay, shut up. Finally, I want to talk about Jay's videos in which he is attempting to motivate men to be more masculine, I guess. He just has such a shallow understanding of who most humans are, though. Like, listen to this. He tries to tell us 3 things in life that most men want, and they're just the shallowest things. I don't think these are the things that any of the men in my life actually want.
As a young man, you just really want 3 things in life. You want a good body, you want to look good, you want to have lots of money, you want to be able to be wealthy, and 3, you want to have lots of women in your life. Or you want to have the options of having lots of women in your life, right? Yeah, you can think about happiness. Yeah, you can think about spirituality. Yeah, you can be like holistically like, oh, I want to have good relationships all around, but like core, deep desires, you want the good body, the money, and the women. Realistically, boil it down to that, right? You want the status that comes with all the money and the good looks, and you want women. Like, that's just what it comes down to, right?
muscles and money and girls. It's crazy how men like this accuse feminists of putting down men, but in reality the only one harming men here and underestimating them and putting them down are people like Jay, who are actively ignoring the mental health needs of men, giving them terrible advice, and treating them as nothing but shallow idiots when so many men are so much more.
Success is very, very boring. There's not much else needs to say in this whole video. It's just literally do the basics. Now you understand what these core 4 things are. Eat the same food, exercise every day, work on your business, speak to women in real life. Just do them. And if you do them long enough, get better all the time, constantly think about, oh, what could I do better this time? What could I do better do better tomorrow? How could you fail? Success really is just boring.
No, Jay, success isn't boring, you're boring. In his video, One Small Habit That Will Change Your Life, Jay introduces us to the groundbreaking process of, this will change your life, planning something before you do it. I know. Apparently you shouldn't just visualize wanting a Maserati, which I learnt as a car, but you have to visualize how you will get it. Otherwise known as planning for something. Apparently you can't just visualize going on holiday. If you want to go there, you actually have to, book a flight and book a hotel. It's crazy. Who'd have thought? You actually have to plan for things. Wild. Jay, changing my life.
So you probably heard about, you need to visualize the end goal and where you want to get to, etc., right? But I propose that you visualize the process. So think about it in this way. I can think of, I want a Bugatti Veyron or a Bugatti Chiron or a Maserati or whatever. That's the end goal, right? I can imagine I want a massive house, a mansion with a pool, and clean up my yard. I can imagine going on holidays. I can imagine having millions in the bank. However, that is what everyone does, and that's why most people are broke. What the very few do is visualize the process. So let's just say I'm going to bed for the day, and tomorrow I know I need to record videos. I can literally put myself in this seat here mentally and be like, okay, this is what I want to say, this is what I want to do, and start practicing that process through visualization.
Sometimes it helps if you make a shopping list before you go to Tesco. Did you know if you want to see the dentist, you have to book an appointment first and not just turn up on the day? Wild. Truly exceptional stuff. Good job, Jay. But Jay wasn't always such a genius. He tells us in his video, 30 years old, I failed my 20s, the truth about success and finding purpose. God, he really, really tries to keyword stuff those titles, doesn't he? In this video, he tells us how all his low-effort get-rich-quick schemes like dropshipping and investing in crypto failed. What a surprise. But it's okay because he refuses to give up and he just keeps plugging away.
I've done so many different things in the past. From dropshipping to Amazon, FBA to stock trading to trying to set up various internet businesses to this YouTube business to my book sales to investing. I think I mentioned that already. To network marketing, I did that. A couple companies. To buying and selling online and flipping and stuff like that online. So there's some different things I've tried, right? And actually there's quite a lot more. If I really get into it, if I write it down, there's probably 20 different things I've tried. Match betting is another one where I made several grand out of that. But crypto, obviously the crypto, everyone's going on about crypto. So there's so many different things basically is what I'm trying to get at, right? But the difference between those who make it in the long run is just the persistence to keep trying new things until they find out what works for them. And along the way, you will find that if you just don't quit, let's just say you're 20 right now, if it takes 20 years by the time you're 40, but you found something.
The thing is, he's kind of right. There is no shame in failure. Failure and rejection is how we learn and grow. We all fail at stuff. We all get rejected for stuff. It is a normal part of being human. Persistence can also be a really great skill to have, but it's just the context in which Jay is talking about it which bothers me. He is very much being a fling a bunch of crap at the wall and seeing what sticks kind of guy. He misses the point of failure, which isn't just to quickly move on to another scam and see if that one works as soon as possible, but it should be to go away and reevaluate, to think, well, why didn't this work? What did I do well? What didn't I do well? How can I improve in the future? You take the knowledge and skills you've learnt from failing and apply them to something new. You don't just move on to another scam and see if that works. He instead has this attitude of, oh no, my poorly written ebook didn't sell. Let me try match betting. Oh no, I wasn't consistent enough. Let me sink my remaining money into cryptocurrency that Andrew Tate told me about. Where is the learning? Where is the growth? Where is the self-reflection? Then he says that it doesn't actually matter what you do day to day. It doesn't have to be something you're passionate about, as long as you do it consistently and it makes you a lot of money. Doesn't that just sound like the most miserable life? I don't know about anyone else, but I would much rather live a life, and I do, where I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable, and I'm doing something I love every day. I would much rather have that life, and like I say, I do, rather than have a lot of money, but be doing something I hate. Jay's priorities are just very, very odd. It's in this video that he also talks about how he wrote books to sell on Amazon Kindle, and I decided to look these up, and they are so lazy and scammy.
I like the process of writing a book about just dropping all my thoughts on paper. It's similar to why I do this YouTube videos as well, because it's like getting my thoughts out into video form, and the book is putting my thoughts out into writing form.
So the main book he's written is How to Become Fearless, a practical guide for destroying fear and living with freedom. But he's also written 9 other books with almost identical hideous covers. 4 of them are exactly 47 pages long, 3 are exactly 44 pages long, 1 is 50 pages long, and weirdly the YouTube one doesn't have a page count. So I was wondering if they were basically all the same content, but with the website for each one changed. Pretty much, yeah. I looked at the previews for all these books, and the openings are identical. It's quite funny because included in these 9 books that he's written, one of them is the YouTube Blueprint, Crafting a Channel for Success, which is funny coming from a man who, while he had a couple of successful videos here and there, currently struggles to get over 100 views on each video. He also wrote Monetizing Magic, Unleashing the Power of Your Instagram Account, despite the fact he's 100% never made any money from Instagram with his 17 followers. It might sound like I'm being harsh, and I'm not judging him for having these low numbers. I'm judging him for being incompetent and lazy and trying to profit from it. So like I say, I looked at the previews of all of these books that I could, and there are just so many basic errors in them. There are spelling errors, there are grammar errors. He can't even write a proper contents page. Instead, on the second page of his book, he has an index. This is not what an index is, and it doesn't come at the start of the book. It's such a basic thing to get wrong, and he does it in every book. Even the introductions for these books are almost identical, as is the actual content. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if these were all written by AI and not him. They're really bad. The one book that is different, though, is How to Become Fearless. This is his story, and it sits a whopping 164 pages long, and it immediately opens with some homoerotic gushing about guys in the gym, a lot of swearing, and misogynistic insults like calling people bitches and saying that someone who's too afraid to do something is pussying out. I thankfully only read the preview of this book because I don't want to give him any money, but I do appreciate this review that Gareth, who did read the whole book, left on Amazon. Gareth said, "Glad I read this through Prime. This is just someone's personal opinion on fear. None of it's backed with facts. It's drawn out beyond belief. Do we really need to walk through every possible eventuality and how to react? This oozes lack of psychological knowledge about the subject. Very poor and poorly written." Thanks, Gareth. You read this book, so we didn't have to. Again, the main thing that bothers me here is that Jay is trying to scam people out of money by doing minimal work, and that's always something that's really, really going to bother me. Going back to his videos, though, when we get stunning highlights like this.
This is how to increase your status as a young man. It's a very straightforward video. I'm just going to list off a few things, and this is what you need to do when you're in your older teens, want to get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm getting some status now. People are respecting me. This is what you want to do, okay?
So many of his videos just fall back on him saying the same thing over and over, and it gets boring, but he also never uses any evidence or stats or even real anecdotes or stories to back any of this up. It's the same one piece of advice over and over. Remember earlier when he was like, you need to go to the gym and suppress any mental health problems? Well, in this entirely different video, once again, he says to increase your status as a young man, you need to go to the gym and suppress your mental health problems.
So number 1, the gym. Go to the gym, get wedge, get some arms on you, get some physical stature behind you. That's number one, right? Communication skills. You need to know how to communicate to other people. You need to be able to effectively get your point across. If you're not doing that, you're stumbling over your words, you're looking like a bit of a dickhead, you're looking like a bit weak because you can't control your mind at the same time. In like speaking terms, you can't get the words out fast enough, for example, and you just look immature. Whereas if you just like learn how to up your communication skills, so there's various books you can read, but realistically you just need to go out and speak to a lot of people that you've never spoken to before, strangers most likely.
God, the irony of this. But he goes on.
So either you get that perspective to look on this situation as nothing, or you train your mind to silence your thoughts, and then you have no thoughts running when high stress situations come up, and then everyone looks at you like, oh wow, this guy is like super calm in this situation, I'm gonna go follow him because he must be like a leader type role.
Train your mind to silence your thoughts. It's just such a bizarre thing to say, isn't it? And then he craps on people for being anxious in dangerous situations.
Bully comes up to you and you're feeling like, oh, I feel anxious, and will I get robbed, will I get punched in the face? Like, that is gonna get shown across to other people in your life, and they're gonna pick it up. They're gonna be like, this guy's a bit of a pussy here and there, like I don't even want to associate with him, or if I do, like I'm not gonna be like tell everyone he's my boy or something like that, right?
He's just honestly a terrible person, and this is as much of his content as I can stomach at the moment, so I'm gonna end the video here. Like I say, I know this guy isn't particularly big. He's only got a few videos that have the hundreds of thousands of views, but he's clearly trying to become bigger. He's targeting vulnerable people in doing it, like actual vulnerable individuals. And there's something so sickening about that I just felt the need to talk about it. And the problem is Jay isn't just a one-off. He's just one example of a bigger problem that is going on, where men's mental health is being destroyed by these types of men. They are putting both men and women in incredibly dangerous situations with their terrible advice, and it's not okay. But that's, I don't know, that's just my opinion. They're just my thoughts. I'd like to hear what you think down in the comments. So please let me know. I just want to end this video by talking a little bit about the new book that I've been working on, because I do feel like I've been working on my latest poetry book for, I don't know, a year and a bit now, and I feel like I'd hit a bit of a creative brick wall with it, in that I've got a few of my poems are done, they're fine, really happy with them, really like them, performed them a few times, they've gone down really well, really proud of them. And then I've got like 10 others that are like a jumbled mess of drafts in various states that I'm just like, I don't quite know what to do with them. They're not working, they're not right, they're not good enough. So I was like, you know what, why don't I just move on to an entirely different project for a while, leave it there, do something else creative, and see what happens. So I started putting together a photography book. I wanted to share some of my photos, and I thought this would be a fun way to do it. And as I was doing that, that book has now evolved into this amazingly beautiful art piece that it's just coming together so perfectly. And I've been able to, it is still very much photography focused, but it's also got little mini essays and stories in there. I've been able to bring in some of my new poems and incorporate them and work with the photos and create these really beautiful pieces. It's really amazing, and it's coming together to be something that I am so proud of. And I share a little bit of my live music photography in there as well, and I've reached out to a few of the bands to see if they're okay with being featured in there, and they've all been so incredibly supportive and amazing so far, and it's just an absolute honour to know that they've got my back and they're supporting this project. One of them, my favourite band, have asked if they could potentially contribute something to the book, like maybe something written. I kind of want to take them up on it, but I'm also quite scared, and it's just, I don't know, that would be amazing. It would be an absolute dream come true. So it's nice, it's got my creative juices flowing again. I'm feeling those poems that I was stuck with, I'm full of ideas for them again and how I can incorporate them into this new book, and it's really nice. I thought I was going to have two separate books, a photography book and a poetry book, but they're combining into one, and this is still a lot more heavily photography focused than say my first book was, but it's also a much bigger book. We're talking like a big sort of coffee table style art piece, hardcover, about 300 pages, big chunky boy. It's just, if I can pull this off, it's going to be so incredibly beautiful. And even in these early draft stages, it's something that I'm so proud of already. And I'm just, I feel like I haven't had this level of inspiration and excitement for a project in a really, really long time, and I can't wait to share it with you all. I'm hoping it'll be done before Christmas. We'll see. I'm loving it at the minute. I'm really, really loving it, and I was just very excited to share it with you. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not going to drop any names just yet, but I'm going to speak with this certain musician tonight and talk to him and see what maybe he wants to do. And I can't wait. The whole focus is now kind of around the relationship between art and nature and our connection with the world, and how we can be inspired by nature, how we can use nature to create art, and at the same time, how our art can be used to help protect nature and give something back to the world. And just, yeah, it's all coming together so perfectly. I'm very, very excited to share it with you all eventually, and I want to talk. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to kind of be kept updated with that and all my other projects and see some of my photography and bits like that, you can go follow me over on Instagram at Rachel Oates, with a 0 instead of an O. And that's where I just post mostly just like personal stuff and life updates and things. But yeah, thank you for watching today. I appreciate your time and your effort and energy in watching this. I appreciate everyone who leaves a comment, leaves a like, subscribes to the channel, and thank you for watching. I'll see you all again soon. Bye!